Welcome to the Cyber Content Podcast, where we talk about cybersecurity career development and everything cyber. Welcome to today's episode on cyber content, the Cyber Content Podcast. Today, we're going to be looking at the role of an ISSO, the Information System Security Officer. So for this role, an information system security officer makes some good money, well into the six figures. But this role, you would be the point person for security. So you would be the liaison between the security department, which is led by the Chief Information Security Officer, and your client. Your client could be in a division or department. So an ISSO could be someone that's placed in a department or someone that's assigned to a system or multiple systems. You would find the ISSO primarily within the federal government. So this is a role that's actually defined in one of the special publications by the government called NIST 800-37. So it lists the ISSO as a role that's responsible within the risk management framework. So what is the risk management framework? It's a framework in response to FISMA, which is a law regarding cybersecurity. And the risk management framework says, hey, we know no one can just install stuff on our network. So let's come up with a process. Let's come up with some procedures to make sure that everything is assessed, everything is checked security-wise before these things are placed on the network, before software is installed on the network, before hardware is installed on the network. And so the ISSO is one of the roles responsible. So this person is going to provide guidance. The whole idea with the risk management framework is to make sure before anything gets installed on the federal government's network, you have to go through a process. And at the end of the process, you get authorization. So you get the authority to operate, the authority to use that piece of software, that application on the network. So the ISSO is there to shepherd the customer or the client through that process. The ISSO is going to guide the client along the way, saying, hey, you need this document to be compliant. You need to check XYZ to be compliant. The ISSO is going to remain there to answer questions, to provide guidance to the client. All right. So there are many documents that are needed, many steps that need to be done within this process. And part of the process is called an assessment, a security control assessment. So the ISSO, the Information System Security Officer, is going to help the client to go through a mock assessment. So prepare the client before a security control assessor comes on board to assess the systems. So an ISSO's typical day could be responding to emails. Majority of an ISSO's time is spent either scheduling meetings or attending meetings or providing statuses. All right, so you're going to be dealing with a lot of documents. You're going to be reading documents, making sure that everything is up to date, things like the dates, the POCs, the points of contact. So if someone has left the company or is no longer assigned to a system, you're going to update that document to reflect the changes. The ISSO is also involved in what's called change management. So the ISSO is going to make sure that any changes made to the system has to go through what's called a security impact analysis. So there's something called change management, where if you're going to make a change to the system, you can't just make a change to the system. You have to seek permission. So you've got to send in a change request ticket. the client does. And it goes through a change review board. They will go and look at your ticket. The details of your ticket needs to be in there. Why the thing needs to be changed, why, what's the impact of the change, and things of that nature. When is the change going to take place? And if something goes wrong, are we going to be able to roll it back to the previous state? So those will be details in your change request ticket. The ISSO is going to go through different queues. So different managers, different parties will review the change request ticket and pass it on. Then once it gets to the ISSO's turn, the ISSO is going to look at that change from a security lens to see if that change is significant enough to invalidate that authority to operate. Is it going to pose a security risk? So the ISSO is going to document that and forward the ticket to the next queue. The ISSO, like I said, reviews, updates documents. One of those documents is called the System Security Plan. So this System Security Plan has all the details about that system as it relates to security. The ISSO is going to review it, update it, and pass it on. Make sure if any document requires a signature, the ISSO is going to try to get those signatures. So in a nutshell, that's what an ISSO does. How much does an ISSO make? An ISSO makes six figures. So on the low end, 110,000. On the high end, I've seen ISSOs make up to 180, 150, 160, 180. So it all depends on how many years of experience you have. It all depends on what environment you're in. If do you have a clearance? Do you not have a clearance? Do you have degrees? Do you not have degrees? Do you have how many years of experience? Do you have certification? So I know a lot of people say, are certifications and degrees necessary? You can find employment within security, within the GRC space, governance, risk, and compliance. But sometimes you will be required to have a degree and certifications. This is not 100% absolute. Sometimes you might have clients that don't require a degree or certifications. So don't let that dissuade you. So if you have a certification such as the CISSP, that puts you in a manager level, and your salary will reflect that certification. Okay, so that's one certification I will recommend getting as an ISSO. Definitely you want to get the basics like Security Plus, especially for the GRC environment, especially for the risk management framework. This particular certification is recommended, the CGRC, Certified in Governance, Risk, and Compliance. That is a certification that's designed for the risk management framework and that type of work. So that will be one of the certifications that I recommend. So either CISA, Security Plus, CGRC, CISM, CISSP, those would be the certifications that I recommend for the ISSO position. How does one become an ISSO? I think you could start out as in a supporting role. You could either be an ISSO support member. You could either be a security analyst. Then once you are familiar with the system and the processes and responsibilities, and you're put in at least a year or so, then you could start applying for an ISSO role. Sometimes they have junior ISSOs, so you could go from analyst or ISSO support to junior ISSO. Then from junior ISSO, you could apply for a more mid-tier um, ISSO role. And then they have senior ISSO sometimes, or lead ISSO. So that will be the progression. And after that, you can become an ISM, an Information System Security Manager. And then from there, there are other um, higher positions within security that you can attain. But does an ISSO, what are the other requirements that an ISSO needs to have? An analytical mind. You have to be able to think outside the box. You have to be quick on your feet, because a lot of times you're going to get questions from your clients. It could be via email, it could be on a call, or it could be someone walking to your desk. That's if you work on site. Which leads to the other question. Are these roles remote roles? Yes, there are remote roles, ISSO remote roles, hybrid ISSO roles, and on-site ISSO roles. So um, you're covered either way, depending on what suits you. Is it a hard job to do? No, in my opinion, it's not a hard job to do. It definitely has its peaks and valleys. There's sometimes when you're busy, and then sometimes you're just doing operations and maintenance, updating documents, and there's not really much going on. But it's a neat job if you're the type of person who doesn't mind client engagement, being talking to a client. Um, then this will be a job for you. What other skills are required to be an ISSO? Definitely knowing the basics of cybersecurity. You don't have to be technical. Again, this is a non-technical role. If you have customer service skills, that will help you a lot. Good listening skills, attention to detail, those will be good skill sets to have. Communication skills, that's a big one as an ISSO. So these are skill sets that a lot of people already have and can easily transition over to the ISSO role. All right. So I hope this was helpful. We're going to keep on bringing more content around cybersecurity, cybersecurity career development, and things of that nature. I hope you've enjoyed this so far. Join us for episode 2 next time, when we have guest Ebony Hall, a cybersecurity recruiter who's going to give us a skinny on cybersecurity jobs and the cyber landscape. See you next time.